Thank you, Madam President and trustees. It really is an honor to have the opportunity to complete 2 of our annual reports this evening during this study session of the board. Ms. Jenna Bacalor and Ms. Nancy Shore are joining us virtually to share some information about our strategic partnerships and community engagement. Trustees, it's so important to, as we all know, that our quality schools are strengthened by strong community engagement with our schools. And what we see with this area of strategic partnerships is that weaving together of the community and the schools. And that happens in hundreds of ways. And I'm very grateful to Ms. Shore for her work and Ms. Bacalor overseeing the area. It happens for a few reasons. Most importantly, to support our students. So you'll hear tonight about parts of the engagement and partnerships that are directly around support of students. It's also importantly about connecting our students and families to much needed resources in the community. And as you know, trustees, our students come to us every day with a variety of needs, and it's the Strategic Partnership Office that often connects those community resources with our students and families. So that support may look like, looking around the district, it may look like thousands of hours served by our volunteers. We'd never be able to pay our volunteers for all of the hours that they give us. It may look like monetary support or donations. It may look like a Saturday group of university students cleaning up grounds at a school or do a painting project. It may look like a corporate team who comes in and gives lunches at school with students and talks to them about careers. It may look 100 different ways, but I just want to point out tonight that it all goes back to this one place in the district, that nexus between community and school district, and that is Nancy Shore. We know the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, and with community partnerships, really their work is about making the village, mobilizing the village, and having that connection and activation in support of our kids. The other thing, trustees, is that quite often this work goes on very quietly, and a lot of times in our day-to-day operations, we see it, but we may not recognize all that is really occurring. So I'm really grateful, Ms. Bacalor and Ms. Shore, to have you here this evening to walk us through our strategic partnership and community engagement update. Thank you.
Good evening, trustees and Dr. Swift and community members who are watching. I'm excited to introduce Nancy Shore, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement for AAPS. As you know, community partnership work is the connection point between our community's vast resources and the district's priorities. In her 4 years with AAPS, Ms. Shore has taken us from a partnership program to a strategic partnership program. She has strengthened our business, community organization, and higher education relationships, and the processes by which we work with them to bring resources into our students and schools. She has worked internally with teachers, with social workers, with principals, and many others to ensure that these resources are directed to the students who most need them, and that we are really matching with district initiatives and priorities. This work comes from the community division alongside our other community-focused work and our large rec and ed department, district scholarship program, et cetera. So our aim in the community division is to build a strong community by co-creating partnerships and programs that serve our students and staff and families. So I will turn it over to Ms. Shore now to walk you through this important work in the first annual Strategic Partnership and Community Engagement Update.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I am going to get my presentation up on your screen. Well, again, I'm so happy to join you tonight. Thank you, Dr. Swift. Thank you, Ms. Bacalor. Thank you to all of the trustees. And can everybody see my screen? Just want to give me a thumbs up. Okay, great.
Yeah, we're all good. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So as Dr. Swift said, our community plays an essential role in helping to raise our children and helping to allow us to connect them to the various resources that they need to be successful adults. And so what I want to talk to you about today is the work that we do at the district level to connect our students to community resources so that we can all have the most successful students and community possible. So what are we going to talk about tonight? I want to give you a nice overview of the purpose and the reason behind our strategic partnerships and community engagement work. I want to capture some of those guiding principles that we use in all of the work that we do. And I'm going to specifically identify some of the program areas that Ms. Bacalor alluded to that we do within our area to really bring in those resources to support our students. And then finally, I just want to touch on a couple of emerging areas and next steps. So I'm going to go through this presentation, and if somebody needs to stop me while I'm going for any urgent things, let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to try to get through it and then happy to answer, obviously, any questions. So moving on. So what is the purpose of our district-wide strategic partnership and community engagement efforts? It really is about being that bridge to connect our students with our community, business, and educational partners, but doing it in a way that is really aligned to our district priorities. And that's the strategic component to it. And a big part of this as well is that it's not just something that happens. Community is intentional. And so a lot of this work is also around building and strengthening those relationships with our community. And we're doing it in a way that is elevating it to the district level so that we can really make it sustainable. So I want to share with you the model that we use as we do the strategic partnership and community engagement work. And of course, it all starts with those big picture items that we are thinking about as we look at working with our partners. So what are those student and family needs? Of course, always looking at teaching and learning, what is happening in that area, any emerging information that we need. And then all of that gets wrapped up in the priorities of our district. And that's really what we use to guide our entree into working with these community partners. So that includes organizations, businesses, nonprofit partners, educational institutions, which I'm going to talk a lot about because we are at the University of Michigan home territory, and you'll see the influence there. And so we're working with those partners to connect our schools and our students with resources of a variety of types. And we're not just doing it at one school. This is a district effort to make sure that those resources are allocated to as many schools as need them. And so I do want to note and acknowledge that this is district level partnership work and that all of our schools are doing their own school-based partnership resource work. They each have their own businesses that they may be working with or nonprofit organizations. But at the district level, we really have that really nice high level view where we can think about what are those partners that are maybe at multiple schools that we can support as a district so they can do their work more effectively, and how can we look at our priorities and identify partners that we can use to really work on some of the things that we know are needed in our district. And then finally, want to emphasize that this is iterative work. This is not something that just goes one way. It is bi-directional. We are constantly getting feedback. And this is because a community is dynamic, right? We talk to one another, we work to resolve issues, we are always trying to get that feedback. And so that is really our process and the model that we're using for our community engagement work. So both Dr. Swift and Jenna and Ms. Bacalor alluded to some of the different areas that we focus on when we do our strategic partnerships and community engagement work. And all of it is related to the resources that we're bringing in to support our students and our schools. So the 6 different areas that we have are our strategic partnerships, our volunteers that we manage, and those are one of the resources, of course, that we bring in, our community resources work that Dr. Swift alluded to, and we also work on scholarships and community donations. As you know, there's a presentation that happens in the spring. We provide some consultation assistance for those school-based partnerships and resources that are happening at the school level. And then finally, we are continuing to evolve our community engagement work. Now, that would be a lot of items to talk to you about tonight. So we are going to focus on three primary areas that I think get to the heart of a lot of our current work that we're doing in our strategic partnerships. So we're going to talk about strategic partnerships, our volunteers, and then what we've been doing at the district level to support student, family, and school access to community resources. And before I get into those three different areas, I want to share a little bit about what our principles are that are aligned with and around the work that we do. So, of course, one of our primary principles when we do any of this work is focusing on equity. So, as you probably know, if you just kind of let resources fall where they may, you're going to have them group in certain places. So if we let resources sort of fall where they may, we may have certain schools or geographic areas that tend to have more. Being in a university town, sometimes the university tends to focus on maybe schools that are a little bit closer in. So when we take that equity lens, we're looking at where can we best allocate resources based on where they're needed the most, and also thinking about what sort of programs do we have in place that we're working with our partners on, and which schools does it make most sense to work with them on? What kind of supports do those schools need? And I'll talk more about that when I talk about our examples. And then secondly, when we look at our equity work, it really is at the very basic level, providing opportunities that students may not otherwise have. I'm very passionate about this because I feel like that is one of the roles of public institutions, is we are a place that anybody should be able to go and get the kind of access and opportunity to do the kind of job or career or have the kind of aspirations they want in their life. And we can fulfill that with our partners by filling these opportunity gaps and providing career resources, role models, experiences that students may not otherwise have. Another guiding principle is that everything that we're doing is working and complementing our teaching and learning staff. So there's a lot of resources that come in to support our students. We have our paid teachers, we have our support staff, we have our curriculum, we have all the things that are surrounding our students. And we want to make sure that any of the resources that we're bringing in with our partners are in alignment and complementing those additional resources so that we're all in concert as we do this work. And so it's about collaboration, and it's about making sure that we're connecting the work that we're doing to student achievement and student success. And then finally, one of the great things that we have at the district level is to be able to think in that structural and systemic way so that we can develop systems and processes and ways of doing things that institutionalize the partnership work that we really want to do. And so some of the things that we're doing around that is making sure that there's process and structure to make it easier for somebody to engage with us. And then also helping to support our staff and our students to navigate many of the community resources that we have. So now I want to dive in. This is a really fun part because we get to some really great examples, just as Dr. Swift mentioned, many different partners doing really interesting things in our community. And so first of all, I want to touch on our strategic partnerships. So what are they? So these are community, business, and educational partners that we are working with to bring in resources for our students aligned with our priority areas. You remember that model that I showed you. So it really is trying to be as strategic as possible. So in terms of what does it look like, what are the characteristics of these partners, we are working with them on identified areas and foci. These are long-term and committed partners. So this is not a one and done. This is a relationship that we want to have that endures. And it's also mutually beneficial and collaborative. So this is also not a relationship where somebody's coming to us and saying, hey, I've got this great product or service. Can you share this information with your families? That's not a partnership. We want to make sure that when we're partnering, we're doing it in a way that is mutually beneficial and collaborative. And then also that there is capacity on both sides to really take this to the next level, to be able to do that planning work, that evaluation, and evolve the partnership. Now, this isn't to say that we have lots of different other types of partners that we have in our schools that we're connecting with all the time. So we have community partners that we're working with at different levels. This is just an elevated type of partnership that is a little bit more defined and allows us to be intentional with the work that we do. And if you go on to our a2schools.org/strategic partnership site, you will find information on those partners. So I wanted to touch on some highlights of our partners, as well as give you some really nice specific examples. So first of all, you can see that we currently have 86 strategic partners. And something to note, as you will not be surprised, we have about a third of our partnerships are with University of Michigan groups or departments or courses and classes. So that really shows you the influence that the University of Michigan has, but also shows you how much work we are doing to connect and engage with the university at this level. And then, of course, we have many community organizations that we work with, and then business partners as well. So now is the fun part. I want to give you a couple of examples of some of the partners that we work with and some of the things that we've done with them. So first great example is the Ann Arbor District Library. So this is a long-standing strategic partner. And one of the things that they offer every year is they make a commitment that every single second grade student in Ann Arbor Public Schools gets access to a library card and gets to visit a library branch to learn more about all the great things that our library has to offer. I mean, it's an amazing resource, and we're really, really appreciative of that resource that they're providing to us. But we think about what happened during COVID. We were not able to allow our students to go and make those visits anymore. But instead of just having that fizzle out, we were able to work collaboratively with the library and with our librarians to have the library create a video for us. And so then we were able to show that video, and they even created kits of the second grade materials so that those could be distributed to our schools. So this just represents the dynamism we have with this partner. We've also talked to them about making sure that we have one-page documents that outline all the great services. They've recently made their library card available to any AAPS staff member, regardless of where they live. And then just recently, they brought in an author to speak at one of their locations, and they connected with us because this author also happened to be an alum of Ann Arbor Huron High School. And so with working with them, we were able to bring Shirley Hanaguchi to our school and talk to our teachers. And it was something that was actually very connected to our curriculum. So these are just some great examples of how we work with this partner. So moving along. A couple other partners, I'm going to talk about a business partner. So KLA is relatively new to town. They are a global corporation that works in the semiconductor engineering industry. And one of the ways that they partnered with us is they opened up their doors on their new campus this last year. And some of our students who are in the career program at Huron High School were able to go to the headquarters and speak with engineers, tour the facility, and learn all about different careers in engineering. And this, again, is one of those opportunities that they might not have otherwise had, if not for us being able to create this experience for them. KLA has also been a generous partner in our Winter Giving program and continue to be a generous partner in that program. And we're also working on some other ideas because they have a foundation that has done some really great work with schools in California. So they're a dynamic partner that continues to want to work with us. I would not, this presentation would not be complete without talking about our amazing community partners, especially our community center partners. This includes Peace Neighborhood Center, Avalon Housing, and Community Action Network. So they, of course, have very deep relationships with the individual schools that are served by their students. But we at the district level are helping to coordinate some of the resources that our partners need in order to better serve the students that they're working with. So, for example, we're working at the district level to help coordinate access to student information with these partners so that they can provide more academic support and wraparound services. And of course, this is with full consent of their parents. And that is another reason why it's great that we can have this exchange, is we can talk about how to make sure that we have the structures in place to do this all in the best practice ways. So really appreciative of our community center partners. And finally, one of our great University of Michigan partners is the Ginsburg Center. They are the community engagement arm of the University of Michigan. And one of the great things that we've been able to work with them around is on a convening of all the different university staff and coordinators who are bringing in service learning students into our schools. And so every year we bring these partners together, and this is the only time that they get to connect and learn from each other, and we can share what we're learning about how we're working with them, and we can have a more dynamic relationship because we have that time to connect and exchange. And we're constantly working on other things with the Ginsburg Center because they really want to help us connect with the university in lots of dynamic ways. So big picture, highlighting the ways that our strategic partnerships benefit students. It really is about how can we connect our students to opportunities and resources and supports that they may not otherwise have. And so we are working on increasing these opportunities. So this picture is actually Daryl. Daryl was a former Huron student, and we brought in the CEO of a local company. And so he got to talk one-on-one with the CEO and ended up getting a job as a local restaurant manager. And that was a formative experience in his life that he's talked about. And so it's really wonderful that we're able to bring these resources and these opportunities to students. And of course, the work that we do to help our community center partners really provides essential wraparound services to students that need it the most. And so really great benefits, connections, access, lots of good things there. So that wraps up our strategic partnership section. And now I want to hone in on one of the great resources that Dr. Swift mentioned, which is this volunteer component. And I did come to you, I think a year, maybe 2 years ago, to speak about our volunteers. And so this is kind of circle back and share what we have as information for this coming year. So what is a strategic partnership volunteer? So again, I want to emphasize that every school has its own school-based volunteers, parents, grandparents, neighbors, they're coming in to volunteer, and those schools are working with those volunteers all the time. What we're doing is that we are helping to recruit volunteers that may not otherwise know which school to go to or know how to engage with our schools. And so we're recruiting and orienting these volunteers. All of them are coming in through our onboarding process where they're completing an application, they're doing a background check, we provide an orientation for these volunteers. The roles that we have for them have actually been done in collaboration with our teachers. We've asked them what kind of roles will best support you. And so these are the ones that they're most interested in: academic support, classroom support. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these roles in a little bit. And in terms of the type of volunteers, I'm going to give you a couple of slides that are going to show you some of the statistics of our volunteers. But it's nice that they do run the gamut. So we do have some older retirees, former teachers, Rotary volunteers, as well as many U of M students in a variety of settings, and I'll be talking about that as well. And then I want to emphasize and circle back to that equity principle, because that is really a lot about how we're placing these volunteers in our schools. As I mentioned before, many of them are U of M students. Many of them are in courses where they are both getting credit for that course, and they're also getting transportation to get to wherever they need to go. And so knowing that, we're making sure that we are using that resource and putting it in schools they're going to make the most difference in those schools. So we're thinking about schools that are Title I or schools that may have a high English language learner population. We're thinking much more deliberately about our courses to put them in schools that we know need them the most. And then in terms of numbers, this fall, we have about 220 frequent volunteers. So they're coming in weekly. And these are in-person volunteers coming into many, many, many different schools. So now I want to give you an overview of what these volunteers look like. First of all, in terms of affiliation, where they're coming from. So as you can see, almost 90% of the volunteers that come through our Strategic Partnerships volunteer program are from the University of Michigan. Many of them are in a course where they're receiving credit. We also have a wonderful America Reads program. So that's a work study program that is specifically around literacy. And then we have student groups. And so these are just individual students that have a passion for many different things. And they want to come in and they want to help our students in a lot of different ways. And then, of course, we have individuals. Sometimes we even have parents who may be having a kid at one school and have time and they want to dedicate their efforts to another school that may need them. And then we have a couple of community partners that we work with, the Rotary, as I mentioned, and then there's the Retired Senior and Volunteer Program, and they also help match volunteers with opportunities in the community. So I want to touch a little bit on the race and ethnicity of our volunteers, and this is self-reported. And what I am happy to see is that our volunteer base is a little bit more reflective of our student base. I still don't think that we're 100% there, and it's something that I think we want to keep looking at is how we can continue to create more racial and ethnic diversity in our volunteer base. But we do have a good array of volunteers coming in that represent a lot of different races and ethnicities. I'm going to touch a little bit more about that in a second. In terms of the roles, so this is just, again, to demonstrate and reiterate our connection to teaching and learning, and also how these volunteers are really directly supporting students and the roles that they have. Most of the volunteers we have academic support, ELL student support, and classroom support, and the social emotional support. They are working directly in classrooms, either in groups with students or one-on-one with students in that classroom setting. And so now I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of our volunteers and again, share some really wonderful stories. So one of the benefits of our volunteers, especially those University of Michigan students, is the positive adult role model. So one of the things we say in our volunteer orientation is we know that there's a lot of research out there that demonstrates having just one positive adult role model in the life of a child can make a huge difference on their achievement in school. And so we tell our volunteers, you could be that positive adult role model, and many of them are. And so one of the people that I want to highlight is Mr. Steven. And Mr. Steven was a student at University of Michigan. He was on the wrestling team, and he was in a course called Project Community, where he had to do service learning as part of his course. And he was placed at a Title I school, and he was placed in a room, a classroom, a young classroom with this little boy. And I came into that classroom one day and I asked the teacher, I see that Mr. Steven is with this boy, and, is there any specific reason why you had this placement? And what she said to me is, this boy doesn't have a lot of male role models in his life. And I also want to note that there are not a lot of male teachers or staff in our school. And so having Mr. Steven as that role model is so helpful for us and so helpful for this little boy. And you could see it. You could see him light up when Mr. Steven came in. And Mr. Steven, as a wrestler, he would go out and play, he'd play soccer with the kids at recess. Do things that really gave those kids a sense of belonging and connection, which was wonderful. And then the second benefit that I want to share is that we do have these volunteers that are reflecting the racial, ethnic, and language diversity of our students. And this is specifically true in some of our bilingual volunteers we have. And so I want to share one story of Sarah here, and she was a University of Michigan student that was involved in the Spanish language internship program. And this is a volunteer opportunity through the residential college, where through a course they go and volunteer at a community organization. And so she spoke Spanish, and she was placed in a Title I school in a kindergarten classroom to help a couple of Spanish-speaking students. And I remember seeing her walk into the classroom one day and see the little Spanish-speaking girl who walked up to Sarah and held her hand. And the whole time that Sarah was there volunteering, she was holding her hand. And you could see how much having this person that spoke the same language, how much that meant to that little girl. And so again, this partnership and connection and belonging that these students feel with the volunteers is really heartwarming. I love every time I see that. I just love it. It's so nice. And then finally, a benefit that I wanted to touch on is this goes back to our principles of connecting to teaching and learning. So one of the things that we all know is that students do need more support these days around literacy and math. But we want to do it in a way that is based on best practices. And there's a lot of best practice research out there about how to use volunteers to help support literacy and math support in the schools. And so we looked at that research and we worked in collaboration with our math and literacy coaches in our schools. And we actually had them, they developed a training, our math and literacy coaches, one of each of them developed a training. And so when these literacy and math volunteers came in, they not only received that overall onboarding by our partnerships office, but they received another training that was specifically around the subject area that they were going to focus on. And so this picture is actually of one of the volunteers at a training at Carpenter Elementary, where he volunteered and learned about how to work with students so that he could do it in the school that he was going to volunteer at. So it's the first time that we've done this pilot, and we've got 30 volunteers that are participating, and it's right now at 10 different schools. Okay, I'm going to move on. So now the last piece that I want to touch on in terms of the areas that we're talking about today is our community resources area. So I want to emphasize again that every school staff at schools have been working to connect their families and their students with community resources for all the time, because we know that sometimes when a family is in need, the first person they talk to is their teacher or their social worker or their EL teacher. And so this is the kind of work that has always been happening. But one of the things that we realized during COVID was that there was a need to systematize and help provide more navigation for our staff around how to make sure that students have access to those community resources. And so that's something that we've done at the district level, and we've done it in a couple of different ways. And the first way is that we have provided a website, a2schools.org/community resources. And this is a resource that anybody can go on and learn about the resources they can access in our community. And then we also created a video to help our support staff, our social workers, our intervention specialists, our counselors, to navigate and figure out where they can find resources. And I want to play this video for you because I think it also actually has some great examples of our staff and how they are connecting our students and our families to resources.
I found that the Ann Arbor Public Schools and the people in the communities really want to help. And when there's a need, people step up.
Our community is rich with a variety of resources to support our students. And yet, understanding where to find resources and how to best use them can be a daunting task. This video will provide you with a quick overview of how AAPS staff can connect students and families to community resources. Community resources are defined as any external resource from a group, organization, or individual outside of your school community that can provide support for AAPS students and families. This support typically fills a gap or supplements existing school supports and may include basic needs, emergency needs, academic support, mental health support, and more. Community resources are typically provided by a local nonprofit organization or government agency and are free or offered at a very low cost. Let's go over the ways that you can access community resources in 3 easy steps. Step 1, check your school resources first. It truly takes a village to raise a child at AAPS. At every school, there are often many staff working to support a student, depending on the student's situation. Before reaching out to the AAPS Strategic Partnerships Office or to a community resource, check with your school community. Start with your principal, social worker, counselor, or other support staff. If you have a TLN, Teaching and Learning Network, or group email with staff in your same role, this is also a great place to start. School PTOs can also offer financial and in-kind support for student needs.
We had a refugee family come to the U.S. with nothing, and I was scrambling to get them the items that they needed. And our district EL coordinator suggested that I reach out to the PTO and school community. And sure enough, people really wanted to help. And through the generosity of other families, we got every item covered.
Step 2, visit a2schools.org/community resources. Can't find someone in your school community to assist? Check out the AAPS Community Resources webpage. This webpage, located in the Students and Families section of a2schools.org, lists reputable community resources that staff, students, and families can access to support students. Feel free to reach out to one of the resources listed or share the resource with your student or family member.
Washtenaw County is resource-enriched environment, so we're able to find resources for just about anything here in Washtenaw County.
I had a parent reach out to me needing food resources for her family. So I reached out to my community members. I also looked on the website at a2schools.org and there was community resources available. And I let mom know about the resource and she was able to go to a school where they had food for her. And so it made me feel really good and happy that I was able to provide that resource for the parent.
Step 3, email the district community resources team. Still can't find what you're looking for? Email our district community resources team, made up of social workers, counselors, nurses, EL teachers, and other staff, and ask a question. dst_resources@aaps.k12.mi.us. Please note that this email group is for staff use only.
So a student who had moved here, very complicated family situation. She had not seen a dentist for about 4 years. We were able to connect her through the social worker with a grant to have her teeth looked at and taken care of. And that's very gratifying.
It takes a team of knowledgeable staff just like you to support our AAPS students. We hope this video helped increase your understanding of community resources and where to go to quickly find help. You will find an overview of these 3 steps and more on the For Staff page at a2schools.org/community resources.
We truly couldn't do this work of supporting our students and families in the Ann Arbor schools without our strong connections to our community and school resources.
I've never worked in another district, but I'm very happy to work in Ann Arbor because it's been so easy to find resources once you connect with the people.
It's part of the reason I love my job. Frequently, we can walk away feeling like we've made a difference.
I feel like when this is a successful pathway and we've been able to connect our students to the resources, that we've done something good. We've been able to turn a hard situation into something just a little bit easier. In this day and age, we definitely need a little extra grace and patience with people, so a little extra can go a long way.
Thank you for supporting our students and families in the Ann Arbor Public Schools.
Okay. So one of the things that I think that I really want to emphasize in that video is that, we can't do this work without all of our partners and all of the community staff, the staff that is providing an essential service to our students. I mean, there's so many people that I'm really glad that we were able to showcase in that video because it really is a team effort. So the final area that I want to touch on in our presentation here is just a couple of emerging areas and next steps. So this is not exhaustive, but just to give you a taste of some of the things that we are moving towards in the strategic partnership and community engagement area. So in terms of strategic partnerships, so one of the things we're doing falls under that idea of creating formal structures and processes to make it easier for partners to engage with us. So we're working on a formalized agreement process, and that really is just to have that mutually beneficial agreement where we have things that we know that we want our partners to know about our partnership, and we can make sure to get that information from them. So that's something that we're working on at the district level with our strategic partnerships. And then secondly, we are continuing to see the type of resources that we need for our English language learner population. And we already have a couple of partners at the University of Michigan that we're working with that have students that are coming into our schools. And so we've talked with the Ginsberg Center to see if we can maybe have a convening of different organizations and departments at the University of Michigan around what maybe we can do to better collaborate around resources with our English language learners. In terms of our strategic partnership volunteers, so I shared the pilot math and literacy volunteer program that we've just rolled out. And so we are in the process of evaluating that program now, because we don't just want to do something and assume that it's all the way it is. We want to see how we can make it better. So we're doing that evaluation. And then finally, we are continuing to do our community engagement work and really trying to refine our framework so that we can plan for even more district level community engagement. And, just to leave you with this idea that, we fully believe that a stronger AAPS community and a stronger connection to our partners is going to make us a better school system. And I think that it is really time for us to get back to the work that we have been doing to connect to our community members. And I really am so proud that we have this team to work on this effort. And I really thank you for your time. And I'm sure that we can answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shore. We appreciate all the hard work that you've done. And I remember meeting you probably almost the first day I was on the job. And you were a friendly face, and you were networking with business partners at EMU, and you were working hard. So I see it's all paid off. Well, I appreciate your time, Ms. Shore, Ms. Bacalor. Thank you very much. Your presentations are always informative. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.